Meanwhile, the gangsters on the other side were also notified, ready to follow the male owner to the male owner's house to make trouble. Then, Jin Shurxian suddenly shook off the male protagonist's hand. He from Kim Ho. Ming knew the gap between himself and the male protagonist. Thinking of his decadent boss, Kim Se-hyun lowered his head. We started out living in different worlds. I used to be glad you understood me. You're funny. Pretending that he couldn't even give up 50 yuan. Hurry up and go home. I'll look at it. The male protagonist looked aggrieved. The feeling of being misunderstood made him angry. The male protagonist still wants to stay. Watch Kim Se-hyun put on his headphones. Fade away. At this time, the news of the male protagonist's mother sounded. He had to hurry home. If you don't go back, Mom will definitely mention dropping out of school again. Do you really want to let go of Kim Se-hyun? Do you want to go back by yourself? Kim Se-hyun walking on the road at this time, thinking that there are still 9 hours before the school opens. I'm thinking about where to spend the night, but he has no money on him. If I go home, I will definitely be humiliated by my father. Thinking about it, Jin Shurxian clenched his fists. Absolutely not going home. That's when it happened. Kim Se-hyun happened to hear the thugs talking. I heard that the gangsters wanted to investigate the address of the man's house. No, call the people immediately. Tell him that someone is following him. But I don't know. A thug had appeared behind him. The thug smiled sinisterly. Seems like there's a way to find that guy. You're a friend of Won Siming. Where does his family live? Intense fear drove Kim Se-hyun to run away without his life. The gangsters behind him immediately chased after him. But Kim Se-hyun, who is already physically weak, how can you outrun these little thugs? Sure enough, he was discovered by the gangsters again. Kim Se-hyun's heart was pinched. Are you going to be beaten again? Remembering the humiliation of the past. Why yourself all day? I'm being beaten up. Kim Se-hyun took off his headphones. He was going to rebel. And the male protagonist on the other side did not leave. Because I'm too worried about Kim Se-hyun. Halfway through the taxi, he went back again. The male protagonist's heartbeat is terrible. It looks like he's in trouble again. But when he remembered Kim Se-hyun's expression, it's like you've passed yourself. He must have been in pain. I can only go back and explain it to my mother. The male protagonist who returned to go. Sure enough, it was found that Kim Se-hyun was in crisis. He was about to rush up, but he stewed instantly. I thought of Kim Se-hyun's lost look. Say that he has never won against others. The male protagonist suddenly missed you. I'll let you win. With his colleague Kim Se-hyun's mobile phone rang. The thugs attacked, too. Kim Se-hyun bent down to dodge. Then pick up the phone. It was the male protagonist who called. I learned that the male protagonist was watching him. So Kim Se-hyun began to close privately. Took the position of the male protagonist. The male protagonist starts teaching on the roof of the building. Make a fist with your right hand. Stand with your right foot in front of you. Don't worry, though I won't save you this time. But you just have to do what I say. You will definitely win. I saw Jin Shurxian posing as a driving mother. Let's start. Jin Shurxian finally installed it. Facing a thug whose body is twice as strong as himself. Kim Se-hyun burst into tears of extreme fear. But the next moment, the male protagonist's phone rang. Kim Shurxian was reminded by the male protagonist. Duck your head to avoid attacks in an instant. Then the male protagonist held the phone on the roof of the building. Conductor Kim Se-hyun followed below. I saw Jin Shurxian first posing for driving. Then the male protagonist told him, think of the left-hand side as a wall. The right hand struck with all his might. Jin Shurxian didn't even think about it, so he did what the male protagonist said. Sure enough, he miraculously blocked the thug's attack. The gangsters were a little surprised. Is this still the weak kid just now? Thought Kim Se-hyun was a coincidence. So the thugs rushed up again. This time, Kim Se-hyun turned around and dodged. Stretch out your leg and gently flap the bastard to the ground. Kim Se-hyun looked confused. Am I so powerful? Then the male protagonist praised Jin Shursien for doing a good job. That's what you say. I saw Kim Shursien show a reluctant smile. Is that what you can do with your stumbling opening? As expected, it succeeded in infuriating the thugs, shouting and rushing towards Kim Se-hyun. Sure enough, Kim Se-hyun easily dodged the attack again. Next, Kim Shuryun became more and more handy, tossing and turning demons on the battlefield. The thugs dodged every attack with ease. The male protagonist was also a little surprised. Could it be that this kid is actually a martial arts wizard? I saw Kim Shuryun pretending that there was no way back. Kim Hyun dodged a punch from the thugs. Soon the male protagonist's voice came to be seen. Now is the time. Because Kim Se-hyun has not undergone any training, it's a bit reluctant to deal with the gangsters. So he told Kim Se-hyun about it. Hit your head hard. As Kim Se-hyun's head hammer fell, the thugs fell to the ground. That's right now. Kim Se-hyun needs something that will get him out of his frustration. It's not a perfect score. It's about getting the approval of others. Kim Se-hyun looked at the thug, who fell to the ground in front of him. Shocked, is this really what I knocked down? After the event, how does it feel for the male protagonist to open his mouth and win? Kim Se-hyun replied with a smile. It's pretty good. In fact, his heart has already blossomed. Soon Jin Shursien asked about the male protagonist. You said at the time that we were very much like Y. As everyone knows, the male protagonist's mother suddenly appeared. I saw the male protagonist's mother with a gloomy face. The male protagonist also wants to explain, but as expected, ushered in a big mouth from my mother. In Ziming, you think I want to see you like this? Did you just divorce your dad? Kim Se-hyun on the side was dumbfounded. I seem to have heard something terrible. The male protagonist's mother is full of voices. Don't mention anything. The study group immediately transferred me to another school. Soon, the male protagonist's mother asked the male protagonist what he had done today. The male protagonist talked about our school very honestly. The first oldest brain melon collapsed. Kim Shursien on the side broke out in a cold sweat. I had to try to finish third in my age. Marry the male lead. Because he knows that in the minds of parents, academic performance is the most important thing. But the male protagonist's mother. But he showed an expression of indifference. Grade 3. What does that have to do with me? Kim Se-hyun finally understood at this moment. Won Siming's mother is a bit extraordinary. Jin Shursien, who came to the male protagonist's house, is happily flipping through the male owner's schedule, was interrupted by the male protagonist's inexplicable words. I'm sorry, Sien. I'll leave it to you in the future. Originally, Kim Se-hyun didn't take it seriously. He only thought it was the male protagonist's mother's plan. But the male protagonist is extremely serious. My mom is a man who does what she says. He would really let me transfer from small to large. Whether it's moving, it's still a big deal, like divorcing my father. Execute as soon as you are ready to say it. He still remembers when his mother was holding him, saying things that don't fit his character. Tell him it's okay if he doesn't study well. Soon the male protagonist's mother opened the door, took out a piece of freshly printed paper. Directory of official schools. Let the male protagonist go to which school for the better. In the evening, Kim Shursien and the male protagonist are both worried. At this moment, Kim Se-hyun understood. What did the male protagonist mean when he said that we were very similar? He had imagined when his parents were clamoring for a divorce. How helpless the male protagonist is. Soon the male protagonist spoke expressionlessly. Before, it's not a good feeling to be recognized. How vigorous the male protagonist's mother is. The next morning, the male protagonist was taken by his mother. Arrived at the principal's office. Everyone in the study group could only stare at the door. Li Jiu knew that as long as the principal agreed, immediately the male protagonist will be transferred. The study group team didn't want the male protagonist to transfer to another school. It was the male protagonist who made them change. It was Ing Tsai-ming who brought them out of the shadows. But Kim Se-hyun is not so worried. He had already done psychological work with the vice principal. Let the vice principal Don't miss out on a talent like the male protagonist. Sure enough, it didn't take a while. The headmaster pulled away violently. The mother of the male protagonist, who has not been approved, angrily walked out of the principal's office. The male protagonist of the Kim family, Hankyeong, is better than a thumbs up. I have made a great contribution to myself. But they weren't happy for a while. In the next lesson, the male protagonist's mother proposed to move. The study group was dumbfounded. It's outrageous to move. But looking at the male protagonist's mother, she doesn't look like a writer. The male protagonist still wants to keep him. I finally made up my mind to come to this school. Only come to this school. He had a chance to be admitted to university, and finally formed a study group. But the male protagonist's mother just kept staring at the classroom. From the time he came in until now, this is already the third time that the fight has been seen. And none of the teachers came out to stop it. And just when the male protagonist still wants to say something, a bench flew in front of the male protagonist's mother. The male protagonist hurriedly stepped forward to ask his mother if she was injured. Saw that my mother's face was getting more and more gloomy. Zaiming is no longer a school. Not next week. We'll move tomorrow. The male protagonist knows that this time it's completely out of play. Soon Mr. Lee Hanjin also came to the corridor. But I learned the news of the male main transfer. Soon, all the study groups surrounded them. You were talking about the male protagonist's transfer. And the male protagonist on the other side has come to the car. The male protagonist still wants to make the last resistance. He's for the present. I don't know how much effort has been made to have this. But the face of the male protagonist's mother is still serious. He was soft-hearted. I'll let the male protagonist come to this school. I still regret it when I think about it now. As he spoke, he couldn't help but shed tears. This time, I won't change my mind no matter what. The male protagonist can't see his mother crying. I had to obediently get into the car. Soon the study group arrived, but I don't see the male protagonist and his mother. It seems to be gone. Everyone sighed. The execution of the male protagonist's mother is too strong. Kim Se-hyun also wanted to ask for help from the teacher. But Mr. Lee Hanjin also said that there was no way, because he has been a tutor in the male protagonist's house for several years. Because of this, he knows the male protagonist's mother very well. He won't change his mind. That mother was not mortal at all. But look at the study group. All of them are full of fighting spirit. At the same time, Mr. Lee Hanjin also remembered to give the boy the years when Ming was a tutor. He finally came up with an idea. That is to drive and stop the male protagonist's mother. Just do it. Several people immediately got into the car. But I don't know. Kim Ho-myung happened to overhear all this. I'm calling other thugs. At this time, everyone in the car looked tense. Teacher Lee Hanjin kept cheering himself up. Inside the car, the rearview mirrors are straightened. Everything is ready to go. Soon the male protagonist's mobile phone on the other side rang. Formal study group chats. We're chasing you after you. The male protagonist looked back sharply. A red car was approaching him. After the skillful driving speed of Mr. Lee Hanjin, the shortest tracking route found with Kim Se-hyun. Soon to catch up with the male protagonist. But it's not that simple. The next second, a group of thugs rode in. The female teacher brakes suddenly. The car came to a steady stop in the middle of the road. It is the past that takes the lead. The first grade boss of the teacher, Jang Tae-woo. Excuse me. You don't want to cross this half-step today. How much the gangsters want the male protagonist to transfer schools. In order to let the male protagonist transfer to another school, gangsters ride directly, blocking the way of the study group. They got the news from Kim Ho-myung's mouth. They must not make study groups. Prevent the male protagonist from transferring schools. It means that you don't want to leave today. Several people in the study group had serious expressions. It seems that the only way to solve this group of thugs is to solve them. They can continue to walk together. So Lee Jun stepped forward directly and mocking Kang Tae-woo in order to become number one. This little trick was actually used. I don't dare to fight with the male protagonist in a dignified manner. Sure enough, Jang Tae-woo's face turned dark. directly shouted. That guy has gone beyond the limits of the human body. I've been beaten by him, so it's clear how to fight if there is hanging. But Li Jun said lightly, Jiang Taiwu, I used to admire your manhood. But now you are unscrupulous and make me look down on you. Since you were so afraid of Jamin, then you'll have to be afraid of me in the future. Because sooner or later I will surpass him. Faced with Li Jun's ridicule, Jiang Taiwu couldn't bear it anymore. A punch knocked Li Jun flying. But Li Jun didn't look like he was beaten at all. You said you were beaten, so it's clear, right? Then Li Jun pointed proudly to himself. Do you think I haven't been beaten? In fact, he had already practiced martial arts under the guidance of the male protagonist and the male lead. He also gave him the moves that his uncle had forbidden. I saw Li Jun rushing towards Jiang Taiwu like a cheetah. A light toe step is a knee thump. However, he was blocked by Jiang Taiwu's arm. Li Jun was a little puzzled. It's not what I thought. But what ushered in was another heavy punch from Jiang Taiwu. Fly out again. The people in the tree study group were nervous. If this continues, the male protagonist will be able to leave. It's getting farther and farther away. At this time, Li Jun still did not give up. Hit Jiang Taiwu with a kick again. However, this time it was blocked. In this way, Li Jun was constantly knocked down. And keep standing up, he finally realized this guy in front of him is too strong. It's basically impossible to beat it. Soon Taiwu gave an order. Began to make the arousal of the little brother. However, the leader was caught by Li Jiu. The ruthless one was dumped. Li Jun followed up and solved another one. Some of the thugs knocked on the windows of their cars and tried to break them. However, it was also solved by Li Jiu and Li Jun. Soon the ground was full of thugs. While Taiwu gritted his teeth in anger. If it weren't for the bright guy, he has long passed the standing army test. It is even possible to become an internal member of the Rock White Gang. But now there is no more poaching. The more Jiang Taiwu thought about it, the more angry he became. It's all because of that guy. I saw Jiang Taiwu throwing off his coat. Alone rushed towards the car. Was taken advantage of by the teacher to overtake. Trying to knock the motorcycle out of the way. Jiang Taiwu still has a glimmer of hope. He was so cowardly that he would not dare to bump into it. But Li Jun in the rear walked over with his hands in his hands. You're wrong. You don't know Han Jing too well. The teacher was not frightened to hit the guardrail. Instead, I'm worried about hitting you. If it had been someone else, you would have been killed a long time ago. That's it. Jiang Taiwu could only watch the car crash away. The motorcycle drove away. Jiang Taiwu had no choice but to hold back his anger and look at Li Jun. Are you trying to stop me alone? Can you afford the consequences? Li Jun grinned. Why are you so fierce? It's time to use your own trick in the suburbs. And at this time, the male protagonist was upright and broke out in a cold sweat. I don't dare to look back. Because of one. The red sedan was following closely. Li Jiu even waved his hand at him arrogantly. In order to prevent the male protagonist from transferring to the study group. Go chase the male protagonist's mother's car. Li Jun blocked alone. Jiang Taiwu, who used to be ranked first. He is no longer what he used to be. The soft grinding hard cannon finally got the true biography of the male protagonist. And also learned the moves forbidden by the male protagonist's uncle. A knee thump can make Jiang Taiwu forced to defend. But the physical gap, or let Li Jun fall into the disadvantage. The next moment, Li Jun found an opportunity. A whip leg hard will beat Taiwu to an unstable standing. But Kong Taemu is also amazingly defensive. Grabbed Li Jun's legs. Flew Li Jun out. Soon Taiwu followed him again. He was a little surprised why Li Jun only used to shave his head. Li Jun slowly stood up, but he couldn't help it. Tell people that you only need to shave your head. As he spoke, he raised his leg again. Gave Jiang Taiwu a solid blow. It turned out that he joined the study group. Nor has he given up on dominating Lu Gao, because he has been bullied since he was a child. At that time, he was a teenager named Ante. Protected him. Looking at the weak Lee Jun, the boy also encouraged him. You will definitely be able to protect others in the future. He's not obsessed with rankings. Instead, he wanted to repay the boy's wish. But now, he is not an opponent at all in the top few of the team, so he used it as an excuse to study hard. I got the guidance of the male owner. Practice kicks day and night. Finally practiced a peerless blow. It's called the Dragon Big Breast Kick. I saw Lee Jun, who had just been knocked down, jump high again. A fierce kick towards Taiwu. It's as if a giant dragon is breaking through the sky. It's the Dragon Big-Breasted Kick. Inspired by this move is a Bruce Lee movie, Tongshin Big Brother Bruce Lee, in order to fight the bulls. The story of defeating the black-hearted employer. He wants to become the Tongshin elder brother of this second. A blow fell, and Taiwu fell straight to the ground. At the same time, Lee Jun also fainted due to physical exhaustion. This completely trapped Taiwu. Come back soon. Lin Siming at this time. Teacher Lee Hanjin on the other side. Successfully dialed the phone number of the male protagonist's mother. Made an appointment with the male protagonist's mother to the restaurant. Soon after, Taiwu opened his eyes violently. Remembered that he had just seen Lee Jun's souls. He fainted. Am I number one in this ranking? Lost to a ranking period. Jiang Taiwu, who didn't dare to accept the facts. In a panic, Lee Junshan traveled. We can't let this get out of here. Otherwise, let this kid die on the streets. And at this very moment, a teenager on a motorcycle holds an iron rod. Beat Jiang Taiwu out fiercely. The gangster's desire for revenge was easily solved by the teenager. Officially debuted the general construction industry. As soon as Pu Jinya opened his mouth, he asked Li Han, "Where is Mr. Kim now?" He had to hurry up. If he guessed correctly, Lee Hanjin is dangerous now. Teacher Lee Hanjin, at this time, is persuading the male protagonist's mother to change. But the male protagonist's mother's resolute character. Even as a teacher, he couldn't do anything. Such a school full of violence. As a mother, he could never be important. And just when everyone thought it was no show, Teacher Lee Hanjin stood up suddenly. "Annie, why are you running away from violence?" Lee Hanjin's eyes were resolute. "You weren't like that before." Hear this. The male protagonist's mother showed a surprised expression. Even if it's the male protagonist who is the party. I'm also a little confused. What is the teacher talking about? I saw Lee Han. Teacher Jean strode towards the male protagonist's mother. Said something that shocked the audience. I was encouraged to change the school's injustice. Aunt Sher's name. At the same time, the principal of the school is looking at a letter of wishes. Shocked. That's Mr. Lee Hanjin. He was sent to the inspectorate for investigation. Recorded the ceremony of digging people in high schools. Teacher Lee Hanjin teamed up with the police. Prepared to completely eradicate the forces of the white gang. As expected, Pai Han also got the news. Pai Han Yu looked at the message on his phone. Looks like we have to let him know we're not good people. Meanwhile, a group of gangsters from the Yen Bai gang. Swarming towards a restaurant. The goal is official. Where Mr. Han Jin and the male protagonist's mother talked. How handsome this teacher is. Facing dozens of thugs, he calmly turned around. He wants to continue to persuade the male protagonist's mother. Retract the decision to transfer. The male protagonist's mother was a little surprised. Is this still the harmless teacher Han Jin? That's right, he is now. It's no longer that simple tutor. From Pu Jinya's mother. That is, from the day his teacher died. In fact, he used to be a bad student too. It's a decadent girl who can get distracted in class. It was Pu Jinya's mother who changed him. Even when he was decadent, he never gave up on him. Made him a genius in people's mouths. Girls' Day. Pu Jinya's mother was talking about Han with relish. Mr. Kyo's ball. It embarrassed teacher Han Jing. Lee Han Jing has always believed in it. Your own teachers can change that school. But the good times didn't last long. Because of Pu Jinya's mother. I want to change the distance to high school. Touch the interests of the Awabai gang. Soon there was an accident. And the only way he can change the high value of the journey, it is to inherit the will of the teacher. At the same time, he could not give up on any of the students. He said that he would leave the male protagonist behind. And at this very moment, a thug attacked from behind Mr. Lee Han-jin. Watching the gangsters attack, hit closer and closer to teacher Han-jin. Everyone was helpless. Suddenly, the male protagonist's mother kicked the gangsters away with a back kick, slammed it on the table. There was an instant silence in the audience. The study group team has question marks on their faces. Is this the power of genes? The male protagonist's mother looks cold. I'm in a bad mood right now. Stinky boys. That's right, Eun Saming's mother. Official president of the Taekwondo Association. National Association. The little gangster who was not able to live just now. Each looked nervous. A study group led by the male protagonist's mother. Extremely arrogant. Annie has to teach you a good lesson today. The thugs were a little confused. Damn, I still think that the male protagonist's mother is the weakness of the male protagonist. I didn't expect it to be an advantage. This is the conscience of one of the thugs. Prepare to leave, even if it's poverty and death. But so many people against one teacher. It's too much. And the dirty poop man who takes the lead just calmly flipped through the phone, turning back and said sinisterly, "Your sister is pretty cute." The thugs immediately hit the master. Yin Bai Gang held his handle in his hand. He had to start with. Soon with the dirty poop, the man pointed his finger. In an instant, all the thugs flocked to it. A red-haired man bore the brunt of the attack. Rushed towards Mr. Han-jin. Li Jiyu's sudden appearance was a fall. These people are enough for me to practice today. It seems that you can pry the gym for a day. The male protagonist explained to his mother in a panic. Rational and not a bad student who loves to fight. His dream is to become a teacher. Soon more thugs rushed up. The male protagonist and his mother mixed doubles with one punch. The male protagonist's mother is a little angry with your child. Dare to fight blatantly in front of my mother. The male protagonist's explanation is all a misunderstanding. And the garbage duo on the side discussed it. Do something about it. Kim Sher-hyun gritted his teeth. I'm not a coward anymore. If you continue like this, you will still be bullied. I had to do something. And this is a little gangster, preparing to attack behind the back. Suddenly, Kim Se-hyun looked nervous. Stand up sharply. But he just happened to bump into the thugs who sneaked up. Oops, something. Kim Se-hyun, who was in pain, covered his head and was in pain. At this time, the male protagonist's mother has completely changed her view of the study group. I didn't expect Gamin to get together so many friends. So many people accompanied him to study. The male protagonist's mother was a little surprised. Could it be that when he was a child, he talked to the ant next door? The words were heard by the people. And Gamin didn't have any friends before. Now I have brought my friends to my house. At that time, you should prepare some fruit for a treat. At this time, the fight over there was in full swing. Teacher Lee Han-jin took out his mobile phone and prepared to call the police. Just pressed, only to find that the dirty man had arrived in front of him. It's too late for the male protagonist to stop it. With a loud bang, Teacher Han-jin's phone fell to the ground. The thugs all hurried out. The male protagonist thinks the matter has been resolved. When he opened his eyes again, the scene in front of him made his heart stop. His mom helped Mr. Han-jin block this episode. Blood was pouring from his head. Lee Jun-woo, who just arrived. Pu Jianya sees only positive. Lee Jinu squatting on the ground in despair. With an ambulance just left. The male protagonist on the other side is standing with his tie pulling. It's not over yet. If the person suffering is graded, then the loss of a loved one is definitely level 1. Male lead. Watch my mother being beaten by the thugs. Hurt but unable to do anything. Sadness and pain can only be turned into anger. At this moment, the male protagonist looked at the little gangster in front of him. Yes, it's all their fault. If it weren't for them, my own mother won't be like this. The male protagonist of the whole play took the initiative for the first time. They will throw the bastards like garbage. Throw it on the ground. Then he strode towards the next thug. constantly begging for mercy. The male protagonist in front of him now. It's like death has come. But it didn't work. A slam kick left the gangsters shoulder to shoulder with the sun. But the pigtailed man still has the chance to win. Because they have a master. The other side. Poo Jin also hurried towards the male protagonist. In fact, he recognized Mr. Lee Hanjin as early as the beginning. He knew Lee Han. Kim is his mother's proudest student. And also know the containment. Teacher Jean wants to help her mother fulfill her unfulfilled wish. That's why he helped out in the equipment room. But admit defeat was something he never expected. And sure enough, this happened. He quickly hid to the sidelines. I found the male protagonist who was discussing with the Fong Shangren. Poo Jianya was terrified. Why is this guy? He was carrying fingers at the time. The bones are blocked by this guy's muscles. Is it okay for a male protagonist who looks so thin? Soon. Fong Shangren raised his hands and responded to the male protagonist's punch. But at that time, it was the same as dealing with Poo Jianya. Poo Jianya was already nervous. This time it must be the same as I was back then. But the venerable Fong's standard pretending words. Too little muscle. Before he could say it, in the next second a strong pain and gall attacked. Hit him for a while. Haven't caught your breath yet. I saw that the male protagonist raised his foot again. It's a forbidden move by my uncle again. The fifth-style raptors crossed the river with 5 consecutive feet. The big guy hasn't gone up yet. The first type of unilateral beating has struck. Every punch is a solid hit. There is not the slightest bit of defense. With the last kick falling, the big guy has been tortured and looks like an unadult. Poo Jianya, who was hiding on the side, was already stunned. Looked at the male protagonist's calm and terrifying expression. Is this the difference in strength? The next second, Poo Jianya hurriedly ran out of the corner, shouting that the pigtailed man must be caught. But the sedan has gone far. The male protagonist is full swing. Overtaken an instant, feet on the roof of the car, with a fierce expression. Give it to me. Unexpectedly, the car accelerated suddenly, leaving the male protagonist aside in the garbage heap. Poo Jianya hurriedly asked if the male protagonist was okay. I saw the male protagonist clenching his fists. How can it be okay to tremble in life? That's right. Mom was badly injured right in front of her. How could it be okay? So Poo Jianya left me alone. The next morning, the male protagonist goes to school alone at home with a school bag on his back. Everything is as usual, but the style of painting has become weird. Lee Jinkwizan of the school checked the entry and exit personnel as usual. I saw a student in an autumn coat. Pass. Leather Korean at this time, talking to a few thugs on the rooftop. He summoned all the strongest strategies of this school. All the gangsters are almost there. It's just that Fong Shangren has never come. As the roof slowly opens. Is Fong Shangren here? Isn't it the male protagonist who rushed out and found you? Pai Korean, yes. The brave man who caused all this. It's all this Leather Korean. The little thug who hurt his mother. It was also instructed by Pai Han. At that time, Poo Jianya told him that it was useless to call the police. Because even the police can't do anything about Korean. The male protagonist said no. Don't call the police. I'll figure it out myself. At this moment, the male protagonist leaps up. A hard kick towards Pai Han Yu. The male protagonist finally blackened as Pai Han wished. However, his blackened target was Pai Han. Because if it weren't for this guy, my own mother won't be like that. So there is a journey. The rooftop of many top masters in vocational high schools. The male protagonist kicked towards Pai Han Yu. Pai Han was shocked. But it's a pity that the male protagonist was pulled by other gangsters. Pai Han Yu smiled arrogantly again. He thought that the male protagonist was helpless. So he strode towards the male protagonist's mocking stick. Do you think you're good at fighting? It's going to be a fart. When you come out to mix, you must have power and back. Jing patted the male protagonist's face. Enough is enough. Yenba opened the door of the rooftop and left. Give the male protagonist to a few master teams. After leaving, He also ridiculed the male protagonist for being an idiot and sexy. Single-handedly rushed up. Let those three guys teach him a lesson. The gangsters on the rooftop threw the male protagonist to the ground. A fierce-looking yellow-haired man. I want to deal with the male protagonist alone. Although we are gangsters. But it's not the kind of hooligan who will beat up his juniors. The male protagonist looks at the people for the first time. This guy is not simple. I still remember the last time I met with Pu Jianya. At that time, Pu Jianya said, "Poverty and the reason for joining the school. It's because of these three people. The gangsters of three, known as the Journey Vocational High School. In particular, Kim Soon-chol, who is the leader, is the most difficult to deal with." I heard Kim Soon-chol say that he wanted to deal with the male protagonist alone. The thugs were about to leave, but he was called back by the male owner. Three people solve it together. Kim Soon-chol looked unhappy. This guy was bullied like that just now. Dare to say such big things. The male protagonist's expression is really, as Pu Jinyi said, "These three people are the shields of Pai Hinu. Then we have to get rid of them all." The male protagonist's heart is beating faster. The face is fierce. For revenge, it is necessary to clear these three obstacles in front of us. But soon the male protagonist found out the ghost of the matter. Suddenly, I was hit in the shoulder. A thug, doesn't know when, ran to his left side. Soon another thug came in from the right rear. The male protagonist was punched and flew out. He stood up with his hands on the ground, dodged two attacks together. But the next second, the tiger-like full front is right in the abdomen of the male protagonist. The cooperation of the three people is seamless. On the other side, the skin is cold and rainy. A squinting smile was revealed. When I first chose a school, it is the cooperation of these three people. Even if it is the captain of the operation of the Yanbai gang. I can swim too. It was only when he decided to choose this school. Let these three people be your own shields. Yes, if not Superman, will definitely be defeated by these three people. But at this moment, the male protagonist showed a puzzled expression. The reason why he was knocked down? It's because the heart is beating nonstop. He suddenly remembered what his uncle had told him. This situation of his is called braining. Yes, the male protagonist has a fatal flaw. That is the desire to fight against powerful enemies. You will get excited before you know it. So his uncle told him to be calm. The ultimate in martial arts is, the words of countless uncles kept repeating. In the mind of the male protagonist, martial arts are divided into three streams. Third-rate water glasses are choppy. A second-rate glass of water is calming. And the top players will empty the water glasses. If you don't want anything, you can reach the top. This time, the male protagonist drove again. There is no longer the slightest magazine in my eyes. Soon the thugs gradually came around. The male protagonist Dan raised his hand to block the first attack. The body accidentally dodged the second. Leaning back and holding the ground with one hand will solve the second one. Face the last yellow hair. The male protagonist stretched out his arm to block. And the Jingshun also saw the male protagonist's foot patrol. This guy looks a lot calmer than he was before. That's right, spiritual cultivation is the basic skill of martial arts. But soon Kim Soon-chol will go something. Wait a minute, how to say it in English? I think I've seen it in a vocabulary book just now. I really want to take out the vocabulary book and read it. But the next second, the male protagonist seized the opportunity. There was an uppercut. Kim Soon-chol hurriedly put his own strong. The obsessiveness was pressed. Stretching out his palm, he unleashed a stunt tiger punch. The tiger came out of the mountain. A series of attacks made the male protagonist only passively defensive. And just when the offensive was at its most ferocious, Kim Soon-chol suddenly covered his eyes and retreated. That's right, he poked the male protagonist in the eye. I saw the male protagonist raise his fist again. But the two thugs next to him had already arrived in front of the border. Before the male protagonist's fist hits, they will flatten the male protagonist first. Facing the situation, the male protagonist showed a playful smile. That's right, he's just waiting for this moment. Unleash the second despicable tactic that was banned by your uncle. Pull the gangster's pigtails with one hand. Then pulled the gold chain with one hand and knocked the 3 people together. That's it. 3 people were solved by the male protagonist together. In fact, it is very simple to win. It's just a bit dishonorable to win. Then the male protagonist opened the door of the rooftop and went right. Pai Hanyu was blocked by several classes. Now it's his turn. When a person is furious to the extreme, instead, it will become calm. I think of my mother who is still unconscious in the hospital bed. The male protagonist felt guilty. This school is not good. A moment in the scene of this school. All appeared in the mind of the male protagonist. If Xiao Jing had complied with the agreement with his mother. Time to leave Kim Se-hyun alone. If you hadn't saved Lee Jun with Yen Bai's help. If there is no school in this garbage. Form study groups. If you didn't help the teacher in the first place. If you don't come to this school, then nothing will happen. The male protagonist threw down the leaflet of the study group. Let the leaflets fall. The male protagonist looked calm. Yes, it's all the blame on this forced school. But the next second, the male protagonist grabbed the falling leaflet. The male protagonist looked at the class of Pai Hanyu, which was wrong. I just want to help my friends and want to learn. It's not my fault. It's you skin Korean. Thinking about it, the male protagonist held the door of the leather Korean language classroom. He's going to beat Pai Han right now. But the next moment, the male protagonist's hand was stopped by Pu Jianya. Don't be pretentious. The male protagonist is a little puzzled as to why Pu Jianya is here. Originally, Pu Jianya has been looking for the male protagonist all day today. He had already gone to the rooftop to confirm it just now. Knowing the next goal of the male protagonist, don't be impulsive. Do you want to make your mom sad again? It's early return time. This class teacher, Monk Ming, has long been bought by Pai Hanyu. If it is said that 3% off is the keyboard block of the Korean language, then this person is the security device of Pai Han. There's this guy doing something to the Korean language. The consequences are unimaginable. Pu Jinya's face darkened, although he has no evidence. But he knew. His mother died because of a poor girl. But the power of the white gang is huge. Even the police were helpless against him. I saw Pu Jinya looking at the male protagonist painfully. Do you know? More than once or twice, I wanted to stab him to death. But I'm going to find an opportunity. Because there are so many. Pai Han will not be punished in any way. Only I will be a murderer. Soon the radio sounded. Have all the students gather at Dolly Hall. The students are coming out of the class one after another. The male protagonist glanced at him. Pai Hanyu was watching him from a distance. He looked a little surprised, as if to say, how could he be here without any incident? But the next moment, Pai Han was arrogant and consistent. He knew that the male protagonist couldn't do anything about him. Pu Jianya turned his head in Siming. Let's go to the Great Hall first. Only to find that the male protagonist was gone. When he found the male protagonist again, the male protagonist has rushed towards Pai Hanyu. In front of many students, he brought up Pai Han. Pai Han said lightly, why would you want to play a game that doesn't stand a chance of winning? The head teacher also reacted. Hurriedly scolded the male protagonist to let go. The male protagonist exhaled lightly. Put Pai Hanyu down. The next moment, a slam punch hit Pai Hanyu in the face. The audience was shocked. The air was quiet. Pai Hanyu's face turned cold. The soles of the feet turned. A side kick is in the middle of the male protagonist. Kick the male protagonist away. Soon the male protagonist stood up again. The students finally began to get agitated. I'm not mistaken. He beat Pai Hanyu. Do you still have to do it? Pai Hanyu turned back to give the order to the head teacher. The head teacher hurriedly hugged the male protagonist, looking at the Pai Han language that was about to go away. How about the male protagonist speaking softly? Does it hurt? Yes. A hot pain in the face always reminds Pai Han to be beaten. The male protagonist continued. I've always thought it was weird. Curious. Why do people hear your name as soon as they hear it? will be afraid. It turns out that everyone doesn't want to offend you, to try to stay away from you. So you've always had a delusion. Actually, you are also an ordinary person. It also hurts to be beaten. The male protagonist spoke calmly. Don't get too carried away. And the male lead. Soon he was taken to the office by the monk Ming. I'm going to call the male protagonist's teacher over. Whereas, the male protagonist didn't pay any attention to what the monk said. He saw only one in his eye. A piece of paper written in English. That's a special name. Then he directly ignored the monk and opened the translation book. On the other side, the school's annual morning meeting has begun. All students in the school are required to attend. Members of the study group are also among them. Among them, Een Zai's name is missing. Soon the vice president took the stage to speak. The first sentence was aimed at Han Jing. Teacher's petition. Since some people say that our school is the cradle of the underworld. As a result, the school's reputation was ruined. It's unbelievable. Let's explain. Mr. Li Hanjing. Teacher Hanjing had no choice but to speak on stage, but was detained for insulting the school. So much politeness. Teacher Hanjing didn't know how to explain it. And at this very moment, a figure was under everyone's gaze. Gradually walked towards the podium. The official male protagonist arrived. I saw the male protagonist take off his glasses. Reminds me of this school. Violence after violence. The English notice reads, people are usually in times of extreme grief. Will choose to give up on itself. Will only complain about their situation. And people seek change when they are extremely angry. The male protagonist opened his mouth sonorously and powerfully. I'm here to make a difference in this school. A great man once said, people give up on themselves when they are in great sorrow. And when people are in great anger, they seek change. At the annual morning meeting of the distance value, the male protagonist stood on the podium calmly. I'm here to make a difference in this school. The headmaster was about to step forward to stop him. Was pulled by the Minister of Education. Wait, let's hear what he has to say. The male protagonist opened his mouth, and I announced it today. During midterm exams, in order to create a good learning atmosphere, I will completely eliminate the evil power in the school. The results of the Korean students will officially begin. Although it is a sound without fluctuations, but in the ears of the students, it was like thunder. This is a declaration of war. These words are undoubtedly in the Korean language of the skin. Even the entire yin by gang declared war. The vice principal was already in black at the moment. Even the most stupid people know it. This is a phrase that will change the situation in schools forever. The school that was originally surging with the dark tide. From this moment on, it will become choppy. Meanwhile, was knocked out by the male protagonist on the rooftop. The three thugs have woken up. Just think of them, beaten up by a first-grade hairy boy. And his heart was filled with shame. The opposite is the smooth. The first thing he did when he woke up was to look at the words. Finally know how to read the spirit in English. Another thug hurriedly reminded him that we had been beaten. If the big brother in Korean knows about us, we will be miserable. But soon the bad news came. Word is spread that they were being beaten. And the Korean language was also punched. The thugs were even more panicked. Then the position of our standing army. Will it also be saved? Huang Mao is still calm, and if he can't keep it, he can't keep it. Peking University won't give them errands in the future, even if you are dragged by the neck. The Jingshun person also said without hesitation. Except for fights, we got that too. It's a big deal to make money. In the hallway at this time, the students are still passing it on. The declaration of the male protagonist at the morning meeting. Huang Mao walked and suddenly kicked a ball of paper. Study groups? He seemed interested. This Tianjin Shuinjia. As usual, I went to visit my grandfather in the hospital. His grandfather had a hobby. That's reading. Grandpa told him. The only thing that can enhance one's own value is one's own. Only learning. But because of the excitement, he coughed up blood. The doctor told him to hold on a little longer. There is a good chance that Grandpa will be cured. Kim Soon-kol walked slowly down the hospital corridor. Then hold on a little longer. But I just met the male protagonist who came to visit my mother. The two looked at each other. Kim Soon-chul was a little surprised how he could be here. Kim Soon-kol. I learned about his mother from the male protagonist. No wonder he rushed so desperately at that time. It turns out that such a disgusting thing happened in Paihan. The male protagonist asked rhetorically, "Why do you listen to Paihan so much?" Huang Mao's expression was dark. He was also forced to do so. But at this time, Shunji's phone rang. A companion's panic voice came from the phone, and Shun Cheol came. "Are you in the hospital now? Hurry up and find a place to hide. They're looking for you." But it was too late. Two gangsters. At this time, it had appeared in front of them. The thugs looked grim. "Let me teach you a lesson." The next moment, the male protagonist suddenly appeared in front of the gangsters. Poor and direct. "Teach me a lesson. I don't know how thick the sky is. Also let the male protagonist leave his name." And the male protagonist was about to speak. Kim Soon-chul pushed the male protagonist away and got out of the stinky boy. Then he left with the thugs. Kim Soon-chul skimmed the male protagonist from a distance. He had a good impression of the kid. He doesn't want the male protagonist to have anything to do with these people. But a word from the male protagonist in the rear. But it made him stunned in an instant. "Aren't you going to study?" The thug glanced back. "Is he talking to you?" Kim Soon-chul pretended not to care. "How can it be?" Watch Kim Soon-chul walk away with the gangsters. The male protagonist is a little confused. Does he really not like to study? That's when a buzzing sound sounded. It was Kim Soon-kol who forgot to take his mobile phone. And it was Kim Soon-kol's grandfather who called. The male protagonist had to replace Kim Soon-chul to visit his grandfather. Is correcting the test paper for Kim Soon-kol's grandfather. He found that his grandfather was very keen on learning. "Just because I answered 4 questions correctly. One more than yesterday, and I was excited." Grandpa told the male protagonist. It's not about getting a few questions right. When he was a child, he made money by buying bananas, eating, and selling newspapers. And want to sell more newspapers, you have to learn how to ride a bike. For this reason, he did his best. But when he earned more money, he ate bananas, only to find out that it was not his true happiness. The real joy is the process of trying to learn to bike. And for Grandpa, learning was like riding a bicycle back then. Find patterns in repeated practice, thus becoming happy. And just as the male protagonist was leaving, Grandpa turned the male bishop to his classmates. "If you see Shuinja, don't forget to tell him how happy it is to learn." The male protagonist remembered the word book dropped by Kim Soon-chul and Kim Soon-kol, who was just taken away by the thugs. When it all comes together, the male protagonist suddenly realized. The next day, the male protagonist came to the study group. Discover the Rotaewon landscape is also there. Luo Taiwan looked at him, so I'll go straight to the point. There was a murderous love last night. Officer Rotaewon held up the newspaper. The killer is the man in the photo. The coming-of-age meeting of the poor and the classmates officially began, with the declaration of war by the male protagonist. The police have also begun to carry out operations. Officer Rotaewon looked like a member of the public at the port yesterday. There was a recent homicide. The victim suffered multiple stab wounds to his body. "I feel like I'm dead." Officer Luo Taiwan suspects that the Yanbai gang did it. Officer Rotawan grinned as he spoke. He wanted to study the group and break into Yin Baibang's interior. Pretending to be a standing army, he went to Yin Baibang to spy on intelligence. Several members of the study group looked confused. Reason and the first to stand up against. That's not a good idea, isn't it? Are you getting students to join the gang? Everyone felt that this was a bit unreliable. 2 is the largest gangster force. They don't know who is deep inside the Yanbai gang. It is likely that there will be no return. Who can guarantee that they will not be in danger? And at this moment, the male protagonist stood up violently. What we need to do? Everyone thinks the male protagonist is crazy. How could such a decision be made? And the male protagonist raised his head. But I don't have time. If Mom is discharged, I will definitely go through the transfer procedures for him. He had to be before his mom was discharged from the hospital. Change this school. Lee Jun first came to popularize science. Although the distance value is high, it used to be a well-known gangster school. But before the Yin Bai gang got involved, it was just a small fight. The situation is not so serious. Everyone understood. That is to revolutionize the school. It is necessary to eradicate the roots of the Yin Bai gang. Not so long ago, the male protagonist went to the hospital to visit his unconscious mother. She told her mother about her decision. I'm going to go with that. The guy who put Han-jin sensei in danger. Fight to the death. I know you're worried about me, so you let me transfer. But I did it anyway. I'm sorry. The mother in the back suddenly spoke. I can't help it. You won't listen to anything I say anyway. You can do whatever you want. The male protagonist was a little moved by his mother. Rest assured, this is Lee Junyi patting the male protagonist on the shoulder. Interrupted the memories of the male protagonist. Count me in. How could I? Blind. Watching a competitor make a show off alone. So much so that he was speechless and ran to the male protagonist. Count me in. Think about it. If you don't eradicate the Salt White Gang, his uncompetitive brother came out. Maybe we'll get into trouble again. Officer Rotaewon immediately approved. The clothes of the standing army have been prepared for them. They will be replaced. The group of 3 who were knocked down by them before. Now there are 2 who are still conscious in the police station. Now come on, wash your heart and change your heart. The remaining 1 doesn't seem to be fully enlightened. But first, let's help us investigate the standing army. After a while, a standing army conference will be held along the White Gang. The 3 of them went to the billiard hall to inquire about information. Because of the messenger in the middle, I don't know what they look like. So now the names of the 3 are Zhang Feihuan, Su Yofei National Crown Feather. At this time, the messenger was still a little poetic. So much so that he put on a fierce expression. Think what you call it. Just say it. I didn't expect to get the information. Mrs. Luo opened her mouth to take advantage of this opportunity. We will Kim Soon Cole. Let's catch them all with those ignorant guys. And the male protagonist questioned the police officer. Is Kim Soon Chul really the murderer? I don't think he's a guy who would do that kind of thing. This made Officer Luo Tairan a little suspicious. The night before the attack on the Yin Bai gang, the male protagonist walked alone on the way home. He still couldn't believe it. Kim Soon Chul is the one who would do that kind of thing. And this is a figure that suddenly bumped into the male protagonist. The male protagonist fixed the mirror and took a look. It was the little gangster who was next to Kim Soon Cole. The male protagonist couldn't help but take his body. Asked Brother Shunja if he really killed someone. Hearing this, the bastard was stunned for a moment. Then he pounced directly, which was framed. Brother Shunja is not a murderer. And just as the thugs were ready to continue, a man comes out of the shadows and doesn't fart. Man is killed in an instant. It was his own free will. Got it? The male protagonist stands in place, clenched his fists and turned his head sharply. I knew it was so. You bastards. He is the son of the biggest gang boss in Country H. Pai Korean. Now he has been dominating the vocational high school for 3 years. But at the moment in the base of the Pai Han, his face was already gloomy to the extreme. The male protagonist's declaration of war at the morning meeting. It was a nightmare that seemed to linger in his mind. Morning, the guy still looked like no one was in sight. And that daring teacher, and pointed the finger at him. It seems that it is time to teach him a lesson. Thinking about Pai Han, he dialed up the changes in his subordinates. You don't really care about that. The guy with the word book. The corners of Pai Hanyu's mouth smiled. So how about doing this? At this moment, the male ruler and Yin Baibong's gangsters correspond. Kim Soon Cole's friend looked at the man in front of him. Shivering, he was the head of the training of the standing army. The standing army, which had a little fame, was afraid of him. He is known as the Herald of Hell. The male protagonist remembered the cry before the gangsters. Even if Kim Soon Chul is short of money, I wouldn't do that kind of thing. At that time, those people must have threatened Jin Shun with his grandfather, Chul and Kim Soon-chul. Take the car given by the standing army test and sell it for money. I want to treat my grandfather. Saves lives. The money was all snatched away by these shameless guys. Kim Soon-chul's companion choked uncontrollably. I know my request is a bit shameless, but aren't you amazing? Just one at a time. Just one at a time. Please help us. At this moment, the male protagonist dodged the attack of the gangsters. Then he punched the gangster away. The gangsters were a little confused. I just got punched by something. It's an iron ball. Iron balls for sure. Mean guys. I saw that the male protagonist put on a good posture. I'll help you even 100 times. Inside the police station 3 days later, Officer Law and his colleagues have rolled up their sleeves. Ready. The male protagonist and others also came to the standing army, under the office building of the General Assembly. They want nothing but to give these scum their due fate. There is also a purpose. That is, investigate the evidence that Brother Shunja is not the murderer. Soon, though, a few of them were stopped by the thugs at the door, because the male protagonist and others are all new faces. But the national crown feather, Su Yofei, Zhang Fei changed these names in the list. Think about it, they should all be newcomers. Just let a few people in, and just when a few people felt that there was no danger, a thug with a gritty look of perseverance, and gave the male protagonist and others to the leader. The thugs held on to the door frame and slowed down. Is that glasses lady called Ms. Guoguan? The male protagonist replied yes. But I thought to myself, whether it was because of that. Has my identity been exposed? Several people discuss countermeasures. In that case, we have to settle them. This is what the thugs are doing. I'm carrying a school bag. You think you're here for cram school? The thug next to him grinned. The thug slowly closed the door. I don't want to be embarrassed, so I put down my bag and go in. Several people breathed a sigh of relief instantly, now that it has been successfully blended in. Then the action begins. The first step is to sneak the evidence away. According to Kim Soon-chul's companions that day, on the 4th floor is the captain of the white gang, Chiu Jaexiong's office. Chiu Jaexiong's knife should be there. Evidence that can prove that Brother Shunja is not the murderer. That person is the real murderer. Chiu Jaexiong at this time. He was preparing to go downstairs to a party with a few thugs, and the male protagonist and others. I also slipped down the fire escape to the 4th floor. Li Jiyu quietly opened the door to check the situation. But suddenly the door slammed shut. Li Jiyu looked flustered. They're coming towards us. These guys don't take the elevator with a good one. Why take the stairs? But that's not the case anymore. Hide first. Soon Chiu Jaexiong slammed open the door. When will that broken elevator be repaired? It seems that it will come over for maintenance tomorrow. And at this time, a thug suddenly simmered. I seem to hear the sound of a door on the roof. I'll go up and have a look. And Chiu Jaexiong just thought he was too suspicious. Continue walking downstairs. Li Jiyu, who was hiding downstairs at this time, and Li Jun showed an evil smile. The ears are quite bright. But he misheard, so let's do it now. Hey no, ain't Siming. The two were a little speechless. At this time, the gangsters on the other side had already come to the roof of the building. I looked around and saw that there was no one. So he closed the door and walked back. Soon the male protagonist jumped from above, almost discovered. But the man must have left. And when the male protagonist is ready to open the door, suddenly stunned will not lock the door. With the male protagonist boldly declaring war at the school morning meeting. Whether it's the Yin by gang or the male protagonist's camp, are all unfolding actions in order to wipe out the standing army of the Yin by gang. Study groups. The team sneaks into the standing army gathering. At the moment, there are already a lot of thugs gathered on the 2nd floor. A few thugs is discussing the Jingshun of carrying the black pot to Chiu Jaexiong. The gangsters sighed. Wouldn't this be promoted and make a fortune if he was released from prison? I just don't know how many years I'm going to squat. Aki Jae-woon came to the party. I guess it's here to reward this person. But at this moment, Kim Soon-cheol's expression was gloomy. To protect Grandpa. That's all he can do. Sorry, Grandpa. And at the same time, Lee Jun and Lee Jiyu were also discovered. This person is the genuine Su Yofei. Lee Jun rushed forward first. Leave it to me here. You keep moving. Meanwhile, Officer Ro Tae-won and others have also arrived. Arrogant and domineering at the door. You're going to get out of the way. Still forced to get out of the way. At this time, Lee Jun had already made a move with Su Yofei. Su Yofei thought for a long time. I didn't expect it either. Why are these guys here? But just hit them. And Lee Jun showed a look of pity. Looking at the little thugs in front of him. You've only been out of the police station for a few days. Just run here to join in the fun. I saw that Lee Jun pointed right. Just let you be that. What's it called? Come to think of it. Come on. Wash your heart and change your face. At this time, the standing army was holding a party on the second floor. It was more of a tribute than a party. The gangsters are all holding all sorts of dirty money. Filial piety to yin baibang. The first place in tribute will receive a prize. The last in the tribute ranking is punished. Soon followed Chiu Zaixiong's order. A thug stepped forward. Chiu Zaixiong smacked hard, and he flew the thugs out. That's right, this is the yin bai gang. Whatever the reason for getting into the organization, anything happens in the organization, you can't quit easily. With Chiu Zaixiong falling again. Do you see it? That's where the least offense ends. At this time, everyone finally understood. This gathering. Chiu Zaixiong had no intention of rewarding him. The smoother who carries the black pot for himself. The reason why he attended this conference. Purely to satisfy his interest in beating people. And just when Chiu Zaixiong's iron rod was raised again, Kim Soon-cheol held the iron rod behind him. Please don't hit him again. But what ushered in was the ruthless corner of the gangsters next to him. You kid carries the black pot for the eldest brother. Do you feel like a character? You don't have to take an inch. And Lee Jiyu on the other side has quietly infiltrated Chiu Zaixiong's office. Successfully found Chiu Zaixiong's murder weapon. But he didn't know that the two thugs also found him. Lee Jiyu knocked down a gangster. So he ran out with a knife. Meantime, Officer Luo Taiwan and Huang Daojun also rushed to the second floor. Rush at the thugs and get ready to fight. And the male protagonist hangs up on the roof. Since the gate is locked, you can't kick it open no matter how much you kick it. I had to send a text message to my companions first. The male protagonist raised his glasses. Since I can't get out, why don't you improve your midterm exam score? Time can't be wasted. Due to the particularity of their high position, the teacher will be in class. Put the exam answers. Tell the students word for word. As long as you memorize the answers, it's no problem. And just when the male protagonist was reviewing, Teacher Tan Jing's phone suddenly turned on. The male protagonist was nervous for a while, and the review book fell. The male protagonist is a little panicked. If you lose it, it will be bad. Chiu is in Xiong because of the arrival of the police. Sneaked out. The textbook just smashed on Chiu Zaixiong's head. The male owner stretched out his hand on the roof of the building and pointed to move it. You're gone. Originally, the official leather Korean language that framed the murder to Kim Soon-cheol. 3 years ago, Kim Soon-cheol and others defeated Chiu Jae-woong. Chiu Zaixiong still holds a grudge. Pai Han-yu took this opportunity to mention the events of that year. Dad, the reason why he gave you the sword he used, it's because you're your dad's most trusted talent. Aren't you going to avenge what came before? Pai Han looked cold in the base, in Zaimi. If you hadn't stimulated me, I wouldn't be so ruthless to Kim Soon-cheol. When you find that you can't change anything, we'll know how small they are. And at this time, the male protagonist who had just threatened Chiu Zaixiong flinched back. No, it can't be exposed right now. Chiu Zaixiong looked at the notebook in his hand. His name is In Zaiming. If it weren't for a strip that would have gone up and caught you, I would have gone up there a long time ago. As he spoke, he took the male protagonist's notebook and walked away. At this time, it is in the corridor on the third floor. Lee Junjung and genuine Su Yofei. You punch me and kick the team? Lee Jun gritted his teeth and thought. Do you want to use the kind that you taught yourself last time? Unexpectedly, Su Yofei looked at the soul of the machine. Knocked to the ground, Su Yofei stepped on Lee Jun's shoulder. Do you think I cut you with a knife last time? I saw Su Yofei take out a utility knife. The reason why you lose. It's because you're a rookie. I don't know how thick the sky is, said Suyu. Fei put the utility knife against Lin Jun's face. Tell me what you're here for. Don't say it. Engrave the word rookie on your face. Lee Jun suddenly remembered what Kim Se-hyun said. Learning is like boiling water. Before the temperature reaches the boiling point, no change is visible. But as soon as the boiling point is reached, the water will become choppy. Now, Lee Jun suddenly raised his leg and kicked Su Yofei out. Lee Jun glared angrily at Su Yofei in front of him. The boiling point is today. Lee Jun wiped his wound. Is this what it feels like to be slashed by a knife? It hurts. Then he slammed a footprint on Su Yofei's face. Successfully kicked the knife out of the air. It was a disadvantaged situation just now. Suddenly, Lee Jun's one-sided was formed. But when Lee Jun was promoted again, Su Yofei suddenly stood up and slid forward. Lee Jun glanced at the rats painfully. It was scratched. When did he pick it up? Don't think about it without Lee Jun. Su Yofei brushed through a few more brushes. Finally forced Lee Jun into a corner. A fierce knife is about to kill Lee Jun. Then, the thugs mended the horns of Lee Jun's wounds again. Aren't you very resistant to fighting? Stand up again. Su Yofei looked at Lee Jun, who was lifeless. Dead? Then there is no way to ask for information. And just when Su Yofei was about to leave, a hand suddenly came from behind and put it on his shoulder. It was Lee Jun, who was suddenly resurrected. Lee Jun took out his phone from his clothes, threw it in Su Yofei's face. Without that, he'd be doomed. At this time, Lee Jun suddenly remembered a trick he had witnessed. That handsome blow made Lee Jun excited. Can I use the backflip too? At this moment, Lee Jun's figure seems to overlap with Yin Tsai-ning. Fei kicked Su Yofei's order. It's just that the landing is a little embarrassing. However, he also successfully defeated Su Yofei. But Lee Jun didn't have the strength to stand up again. Li Jiyu should have got something over there. The other side at this time, Li Jiyu, who was holding a knife, was desperately trying to escape. The two thugs in the back were in hot pursuit. Finally forced Li Jiyu into a corner, and there was no way. Li Jiyu had no choice but to knock down one of the thugs. But at the same time, the electronic material of the gangster's legs is also exposed. Rely on Li Jiyu. In Country H, electronic material dependence means that F offender. The thug's expression was suddenly terrifying. I just like the look of disgust on your face. The little girl who didn't know what to do at the time. It's the same expression, but when the eyes of the inner changed from disgust to fear. I'm going to be very distressed. Even committed suicide by jumping off a building. It's stupid. Li Jiyu's hand holding the knife trembled constantly. Then it completely turned into anger at you scumbag. Li Jiyu, who has lost his mind. Crazy rush towards scum, but he just fell for the scum's scheme. Addicted to drugs? The scum looked at Li Jiyu calmly. You're going to faint. So much so that he was stunned by the gangsters. Taken to the roof by the scum. I'm about to do something indescribable. At the same time, the male protagonist also noticed this scene upstairs. But the door to the roof was locked. The male protagonist can't get out at all, and at this moment, Kim Soon, who was supposed to be taken away by the police, Tetsu suddenly appeared. It turned out that just now, Officer Luo Taiwan performed a stunt. Solve all the gangsters on the second floor. But Kim Soon-chul still looks like he wants to turn himself in. No matter what the officer says. He killed a man. Tough attitude. If you don't arrest me, don't even think about leaving. What can he do? He knows the methods of those scum. Will definitely do it to his grandfather. You can hear that. Officer Luo Taiwan just calmly took out a cigarette. Ask Kim Soon-chul why he killed. A few more stabs. Kim Soon-chul still had an apologetic expression. The acting skills are full. Poke 3 times. When there was an argument they killed him, Officer Ro Taewon looked up and thought for a moment. Looked back with eyes that seemed to see through everything. Look at Kim Soon-chul. Are you really going to just give up on your life? Officer Ro Taewon spoke slowly. After investigation, the man was stabbed only once. And the wound is clean. It was clearly stabbed with a knife. It's not your big one. Excuse me. All the evidence specifies that you are not the murderer. It is not acceptable for you to turn yourself in. Kim Soon-chul began to panic. I really killed the police officer. But before Kim Soon-chul could finish speaking, a punch from his companion threw him in the face. Catching Kim Soon-chul is a few punches. He had to make this kid sober up. But he was thrown aside by Kim Soon-chul in turn. So what else can I do? They named me to confess. If they don't listen, they will be retaliated against. That's probably what I'm holding the dirty money with. The price of treating Grandpa. Kim Soon-chul's companion was silent for a moment. He knows the current Kim Soon-chul. It is useless to persuade him. He had no choice but to let Kim Soon-chul know the truth. Grandpa Shuinja doesn't seem to be able to hold out for a few days. We went to see Grandpa in the 3 days you were gone. The doctor told us that Grandpa was just coming back. Grandpa must have been some kind of laster for so long. Perseverance is supporting him. The doctor was concerned about Kim Soon-chul's feelings. I didn't tell him. Kim Soon-chul's expression froze instantly. I saw my companion grab Kim Soon-chul's shoulder. Even if you can't be while Grandpa is alive, be a good person, but not before he died. See you become a criminal. And the one with glasses. They're here to help you. The smoother, who was defeated again at this moment, remembered the words of the male protagonist at that time. You're really not going to study. He rushed towards the thugs again. At the same time, Li Jiu also woke up. One knock, one down. You're not fighting alone. It's 2 on 2 if you have an idea. Let's go together. But in the end, he was beaten by 2 thugs. He dragged them by the hair and walked out. 2 of them students. How could it be the opponent of the little gangsters of the Yanbai gang? Li Jiu, who can be dragged by his hair. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Because he heard upstairs the sound of chains being opened. Kim Soon-chul's companion at this time. He was panting as he watched the open door. I'm sorry, all I can do is execute. The rest is up to you. At the same time, out of sensitivity to the crisis, both thugs looked in one direction. A dark figure stood in the doorway. The gangsters upstairs is looking at the items spilled out of the man's backpack. That's what it is. With a burst of breaking sounds, the male protagonist is sitting down with the shame of the stick dance. I'm sorry, guys. I'm late. Uncle Forbidden Trick 8th Trick Death Game. Nunchucks dance. Attention, everyone. Native High Energy. Li Jiwoo and Kim Soon-chul were dragged along by thugs. But at this time of crisis, Li Jiu smiled. Because the chains on the roof of the building have been cut. A dark shadow broke through the seal. Li Daz looked at the back of the male protagonist. I'll leave it to you next. If you're in danger, hurry. Running away was a problem for the 3 of us. I can't thank you enough to help us get here. The male protagonist spoke lightly. What are you talking about? Aren't we all high school on the road? Don't worry, leave it to me. Now. The male protagonist at the door whirred the nunchucks dance, looking at the little thug who was dragging his companion. His eyes were full of murderous intent. The first nunchuck practice in actual combat. The male protagonist is very serious. First of all, we must control the intensity. You can't beat people to death. Raised his hand and gave the thug a look. Lean down and strike again. The thugs looked confused. Is that guy wielding a nunchuck? How can it be so powerful? Then the male protagonist jumped lightly. Keep your feet off the ground. It's the final blow of the triple hit that falls. The gangster's 5 tigers take off. Hit the ground hard. Rational and approving. The four-eyed madman is powerful. The male protagonist slowly picked up the knife on the ground. This is what proves Brother Shunsha, a handsome man who is not a murderer. At this moment, Kim Soon-chul hurriedly reminded the male protagonist to be careful. But the gangsters have already arrived in front of the male lead mirror. A punch knocked the male protagonist out of the air. The thugs began to pretend to be forced. Is this your confidence? It's the first time I've come. I saw someone with a nunchuck. It's still so heavy. Soon the male protagonist came back again. The thugs took the opportunity to pick up the nunchucks on the ground, and the male protagonist fought a blow. Excuse me. The eldest brother also practiced nunchucks for a while. I'll hit you with this. What's going on? How do you bend the nunchucks? The thug looked at the nunchuck in his hand at a loss. How did he use something so light? Knocking people flying. 2 people on the roof at the moment. I'm looking at the iron gate that has been sunk in. Shocked. The male protagonist opened his mouth expressionlessly. That's because I use power. At this moment, the thug remembered that it was a return from his companions. At that time, he heard about Wu Chong, who was in charge of digging people. How was knocked down? I don't care yet. I just thought that Wu Chonghao was old and useless. That's what he's always thought. But when he really fought with the male protagonist, he found out. It turns out that it's not impermanence, it's useless. It's that this guy is a monster. The thug simply threw the nunchuck on the ground. Then untie the garment and take it off. Monsters. I think I was also a monster in other people's mouths back then. Now you can practice your hands. Li Jiu fanned the flames on the sidelines. That guy is an S. The aggressor stated that he would be killed. The male protagonist swings away and lifts the nunchuck. With a sweep, he dodged the thug's punch. A backhand stick was slapped in the thug's face. But the opportunity was seized by the gangsters. A suck hit the male protagonist's abdomen hard. Then it was biased towards the male protagonist. That's it. That's the expression. A woman who appears like a savior, but lost to an unexpected force. Ruining someone else's real thing. Feel this guilt. There's nothing more exciting than that. The thug then raised his fist. Gave the male protagonist the final blow. You will be destroyed in my hands today. This blow made the male protagonist fly out of number. Crashed into a garbage heap in the rear. The thug showed a smug expression and the main exit. See what you guys do. But he didn't know. The male protagonist has already appeared behind him. It's so weak. I was so disappointed. The male protagonist's face is full of disappointment. Brother Deja told me that you are very fierce. I brought nunchucks with me. I knew I wouldn't bring it. Saying that, the male protagonist threw the nunchuck up again. You think that's all there is to it? Can you ruin other people's lives? One blow falls. The gangsters are still looking for the male protagonist. But I saw another attack from the other side. I saw the male protagonist dancing the nunchuck every time. Can give the gangsters a vital blow. That's it. The gangster doesn't know how many times he was beaten by the male protagonist. Finally outraged. Instantly close to the position of the male protagonist and grabbed the male protagonist. Of nunchucks. The thug smiled smugly. He caught this as the fatal flaw of the nunchuck. Once you get caught or close the distance, it's over. And the male protagonist ignored it. Just gently raise your other hand. The thugs were a little surprised. Is this posture an inch fist? But when he hit it, he found that there was no danger. Rational and a little panicked. It seemed so close. Even this madman couldn't exert his strength. But only Kim Soon-chul saw it. I've heard from the master before. The strength is generally referred to as the 3 distances according to the distance. About 10 feet 10 is called the size of the foot. About 1 inch 10 is called inch diameter. Finally, at a distance of less than 1 foot. When attacking from near 0 distance. That is the ultimate strength. I saw that the male protagonist opened his mouth gently and let you break your liver and intestines first. The fourth move to save the forbidden trick is zero-distance boxing. Storyboard attacks like a meteorite will be beaten unconscious. Afterwards, the male protagonist gradually moved towards the fine. You're free now. Come back to school with us. Those who are obedient weep bitterly. Please let me study with you. The study group has worked tirelessly. Evidence that Kim Soon-chul was not the murderer was finally found. The next thing to do is to take this knife to the police station. Can clear Kim Soon-chul's charges. However, the next second is easy to happen. A gang of cops suddenly appeared. You don't have to go. We've come over. With that, he brought the handcuffs to the hands of the Smooth. So much so that others hurriedly claimed that they had evidence in their hands. The policeman turned his head with a fierce expression. The scum with a high distance value. Shut up. Meanwhile, Officer Ro Tae-won is following the culprit who escaped. Cheo Zai-xiong's shadow. Cheo Zai-xiong looked at the car window and smiled evilly. If only he were alone. Today is the date of his death. But who would have thought that the male protagonist arrived at this time? Officer Ro Tae-won looked surprised. How did you kid end up here? The male protagonist said that he was here to return to the textbook. Cheo Zai-xiong, in order not to be too loud, I had to take the textbook to the male protagonist. Looked at the male protagonist's clothes. I thought the male protagonist was also a person in the standing army. But why did this kid dare to stare at me? Don't be afraid. Cheo Zai-xiong didn't want to think about it. Let's send this kid away first. I didn't expect the male protagonist in the rear to suddenly open his mouth. You're Cheo Zai-xiong, the real murderer of the Port murder. Officer Luo Taiwan looked shocked, and sure enough, he guessed correctly. In Siming did not pass by here by chance. The male protagonist's face remains the same. Uncle, aren't you the murderer? Hear this. Cheo Zai-xiong raised his palm. Is going to teach the male protagonist a lesson. Officer Luo Taiwan on the side took the opportunity to go around behind him. An elbow blow interrupts Cheo in the bear casting. Cheo Zai-xiong thought for a while. Finally understood. This kid is in league with that policeman. Cheo Zai-xiong turned his head to see why he was holding on to me. Didn't Kim Soon-chul turn himself in? Officer, don't wrong the good person. That's right. Officer Luo Taiwan. I ask you if you think you're dead. How many people will attend your funeral? At this time, Mrs. Luo's wrist flashed with memories in her mind. He has always acted with a sense of justice in his heart, even in the face of the distrust of the boss. He can also be angry with himself, suit oneself, because he didn't want those tragedies to happen again. He's going to let those fight. The bullying bastard gets the revenge he deserves. I don't want to play with Ro Tae-won yet. His life came from the back of Cheo Zai-xiong's neck. Tons of damage were done. Cheo Zai-xiong's face was full of question marks. Hit his head on the car door and fell unconscious. Officer Ro Tae-won broke out in a cold sweat, looking at the unconscious Cheo Zai-xiong. Is this the Nurai Divine Palm? At the same time, the male protagonist checked Cheo Zai-xiong's mobile phone. The call on the mobile phone is ancient construction. Officer Ro Tae-won picked up the phone. A voice immediately came from the side. The eldest brother is too powerful. Just kill the real estate guy. Officer Luo Taiwan made an okay gesture to the male protagonist. Sure enough, it was because of a construction dispute. Now the evidence is conclusive. But what happened to Kim Soon-chul's side? Meanwhile, on the other hand, he is rational with Lee Daz. 2 police officers are being restrained. The police are still pulling Kim Soon-chul to verbally intimidate. They obstruct official business. I won't be able to run away then. Lee Dae-chul panicked and shouted at Kim Soon-chul to run. If only they were allowed to bring it back. Forcing you to turn yourself in is over. Think of those who help you. Don't give up, idiot. Kim Soon-chul pressed his expression, violently turned sideways and threw the policeman away. He has to drag it to the male protagonist and Luo Taiwan. Officers arrived, but in the next second, the police raised their motor guns. Instantaneous, terrifying motor sound, crackling on Kim Soon-chul's body. Looking at Kim Soon-chul's pained expression, The policeman felt wronged without any fluctuations in his heart. Who made you get involved with the underworld in the first place? Meanwhile, Officer Luo Taiwan and the male protagonist are facing that side. Fly to rush. The male protagonist is not worried, because he knew that Brother Shuinja would not give up easily. At this time, Kim Soon-kol was hit by a gun but stood improperly, and said that the male protagonist and others rushed to Taipei. Ambulance on the stage. Officer Ro Tae-won, Seong Mustache, took out evidence of Chio Jae-won. The success proved Kim Soon-kol's innocence. The male protagonist looked at the anger in front of him. It's all over. Soon the male protagonist returned home. That's right. Why did Mr. Hanjin call me? How can I have an ominous premonition? With a click, the door of the male protagonist's house was opened by Mr. Hanjin. Then the mini is back. The male protagonist looked confused. How could the teacher be here? The dear high three philosophers who were distorted by the smell. It's so kind. After the study group cleared Kim Soon-kol's name. 2. The man successfully got back the life-saving money of Grandpa Kim Soon-chol. Look at the passbook with a large sum of money in your hand. Both smiled sinisterly and wickedly. Otherwise, we will carry Kim Soon-chol on our backs. How about secretly using the money to buy some supplements for Grandpa? Let's go. It's finally time for us to do our filial piety. Looking at the cheerful backs of the two, cold sweat flowed down Kim Se-hyun's head. It's scary to watch. Soon, a figure ran towards Kim Se-hyun in a panic. Choi Hee-won, who officially rushed over. He heard that Ji-yu was fighting with people. Almost got a concussion. So come over and see the two quietly open the door. The scene in front of them made them speechless. I almost forgot that these guys were crazy. The screen turns. The male protagonist at this time was also speechless. This woman really wants to live with herself. Teacher Hanjin turned his head harmlessly, and there was no way. It's your mother who asked me to take care of you. The inner thoughts are indeed. Actually, I was able to convince with great difficulty. The male protagonist showed a guilty expression. I remembered that after my mother was injured, the appearance of Mr. Hanjin. It turned out that the teacher had always cared about that. Suddenly, Mr. Hanjin put on a posture of interrogation. Then again, what were you doing out yesterday? It's suspicious. Oh, the male protagonist is a little weak-hearted. Flee to the room in a panic. I suddenly remembered that it was time to learn Chinese today. The male protagonist who walked to the door paused. He felt that the teacher was not necessary. Feeling guilty. On the contrary, I should thank the teacher. At this time, the male protagonist is studying hard. If you didn't take notes, this question will definitely be answered incorrectly during the exam. Fortunately, the textbook was recovered. In a trance, the male protagonist remembered what Officer Luo Taiwan said. I think you're a natural cop. Then Officer Ro Tae-won laughed playfully. Don't want to be a police officer. So what are your dreams? The male protagonist answered without hesitation to go to college. But Officer Ro Tae-won looked serious. Although I didn't go to college, it's not very clear. But few people should say their dreams. I guess I went to college. Yes. The male protagonist's dream since childhood is to become a college student. To be like his father. But what is my real dream? At the same time, he also reminded it. Teacher Han Jing, who has been peeking at the door. Teacher, when are you going to see me? Teacher Han Jing smiled awkwardly. Walked in. I kind of miss the days when I was your tutor. I've only been a teacher for a month now. It's a feeling of a lot of hard work. At this time, the male protagonist finally raised his own questions. The teacher, do you think it is a dream to become a university student? It seems that Zai Ming has also begun to think about this problem. Teacher Tan Jing was a little relieved, yes. Dream this thing. It's a problem that can plague people for a lifetime. Becoming a college student is not so much a profession for him. It's more like he's an identity. So you can't take it as a dream. The male protagonist is a little lost. It turned out that I was a salted fish with no dreams. At this time, Mr. Han Jing's words came again. Even if you change to a doctor, Careers such as chefs and singers are not considered dreams either. They can only be counted as a tool. When you know you want to use this tool, come and do what time. Only then can you say that you have a dream. In fact, dreams don't have to be great. If the dream of remingling, it's a word to be a college student. So what kind of college student do you want to be? He lives in the shadow of his father. All I want is to study hard and go to university. Haven't thought about it yet. What kind of college student do you want to be? He remembered the tutor he had been. He was talking to himself about his dreams very seriously. Be a way to move children towards a better future. Forward teacher. Soon the teacher's voice interrupted the male protagonist's memories. What do you think? Is it tasty? The glow of the sunset illuminates the whole male protagonist. How to say it? It's great. Mr. Hanjin looked stunned, raised his hand, and punched the male protagonist in the head. Smile with relief and eat more. Meanwhile, the male protagonist's morning meeting is a sonorous and powerful word. It comes to everyone's mind. It's midterm exam time. We don't fight for power. Nor is it for the sake of sin. We just want to be for people who are eager to learn. Eliminate all obstacles to learning. That's all. At this time, 2 of the 3 philosophers on campus are chatting on the street. One of them was a little curious. Why do you conclude that Chiu Zaixiong is the real murderer? What if it's someone else? Li Daz takes off his mask. It was a very reliable person who told me. It seems to be called Pu Jianya. Pu Jianya raised his head, and his thoughts flew. Remembered Ian Zaimong, who gave a punch to the Korean language at that time. Maybe his words really can. After a few days, the peaceful life ended. The real showdown is about to begin. Midterm exams are coming. After a lot of hardships, midterm exams have finally begun. It's a show. The exam is incredibly difficult. Kim Se-hyun was writing the answer with a comfortable face. That's too easy, isn't it? Everybody won't get a perfect score. However, this is not the case. In fact, only he thinks it is simple. Everyone in the study group had a face. Looked at the exam paper in confusion. Some people even use pen caps to get answers. The male protagonist who finished the exam seemed to have his body hollowed out. Lee Jun opened the door of the examination room with an excited face. The answer to question 9 is definitely 1. At the same time, Li Jiu also opened the door. The fart is obviously 3. And just when everyone is choosing 1 or 3, at the time of the argument, the male protagonist trembled as he held the exam paper. Because he has a strong Xuanwu. At this time, a figure watched this scene from the doorway. Now the southern part of the country along the White Gang is in reserve. The army has completely collapsed. A teenager smiled on his phone and apologized. Ink Tsai Ming seems to be underestimating you. So let this guy deal with you. On the other side, Kim Soon-chul came out of the examination room. I was running desperately. Because he heard from his companion that his grandfather was going to die. But I heard that my grandfather still insisted on taking the TOEIC. The doctor couldn't stop him. Hear this. Inexplicable emotions welled up in the male protagonist's heart. Gradually clench your fists. At this moment, Kim Soon-chul is running like crazy. Grandpa, I'll take you to the exam. However, the next second was blocked by a group of thugs. Pai Han tells them that they just need to kill Kim Soon-chul and reinstate them as a standing army. Hear this. Kim Soon-chul gritted his teeth, and it was this Pai Han-woo again. You kid is endless. As he spoke, he instantly rushed to the gangsters. Meanwhile, the second is in general hospitals. Grandpa couldn't hold it anymore. Looking at the book, he gradually closed his eyes. But Kim Soon-chul still didn't arrive. Grandpa was unwilling. I originally wanted Shuinja to see it. The way he walked out of the examination room in style. It seems that I have worked hard to learn those things. Hasn't come in handy yet. It's leaving. That's when it happened. A sound rang out in the darkness. Take one in hand. The male protagonist of the midterm exam paper appeared in front of him, looking at Grandpa's haggard appearance. The male protagonist looked serious. Grandpa, you're ready, aren't you? Meanwhile, on the other side, Kim Soon-chul has been wounded all over his body. The gangster just now. He was already lying on the ground. Kim Soon-chul fought with his last strength. Finally rushed to the hospital. Running towards Grandpa's hospital room. 1. Throw the copper egg aside and look at the ward. 2. Tetsuya wept on his face, and Shuinja did not open the door. Grandpa, he's taking an exam. At this moment, the male protagonist is holding the radio for his grandfather. English listening is playing. Grandpa spelled it. The last strength is at the same time as completing the exam. Teacher Han-jin, on the other side, was on the phone. Once you know it, you will destroy the exam papers as soon as you are done. Don't worry anymore. Study groups? Everyone did their best to keep the hospital in order. Although it was a no-show game. Exams that are not recognized. But Grandpa did his best for it. So don't open the door. At this moment, Kim Soon-chul outside the door was already crying. I remembered what my grandfather had said. The only way to increase your own value. Only learning. Learning is not just a matter of enduring. It's not reluctant. It's a joy. Shunja, I'm sure you can too. Because you are my grandson. These were the last words that his grandfather left him. Soon Grandpa's funeral was held. Kim Soon-chul looked at his grandfather's posthumous photo and was a little speechless. At this time, the male protagonist just arrived. Kim Soon-chul spoke in person. Can I join the study group as well? Isn't it said that there is no morning or evening to learn? 2 months later, M went to an abandoned factory. Dirty and sick are all over the body. What are you going to do with me? What exactly is your purpose? Looking at the dark shadow at the door, his tone trembled. Could it be that you want to take down the Yanbai gang? Pu Jianya spoke in person. It's all just because of my personal vendettas. I'm going to let those guys who take away my beloved. The pain is unbearable. That's all. This teenager has been hiding his strength. On the surface, the distance value is high. Pu Jianya, a student of Class 8 in the year. In fact, behind the scenes, it is the naked power fighter Noah. Now he finally no longer hides his strength. Cooperate with Chubby. First found and the chief of the administrative section who criticized the collusion of the Korean language. He was smiling a second ago. The next second with the amazing teacher. I want to ask you, what it's like to be a lackey for a student. Teacher, you scream. The chubby little chubby who was hiding on the side broke out in a cold sweat. At this moment, the chief of the administrative section is still confused. What did you just say? Pu Jinya's face was calm. I said, you are a lackey. The chief of the administrative section grabbed Pu Jinya by the collar. What do you kids say? However, it was thrown away by Pu Jinya. Teacher Wu Jinghua, you know, when Teacher Jinghua was killed a year ago, it's that you don't necessarily take advantage of other teachers. Let's keep this a secret. The more Pu Jinyi spoke, the more excited he became. Surveyed for poverty and disadvantage. Then you take bribes. Arrange for other teachers. The business of the office will be dismantled. So there was no one to assist in the investigation at that time. Because of your vile and shameless fear. And the panicked chief of the administrative section didn't notice it at all. A mark under the body. Soon a glass bottle fell. It happened to hit him on the head. At this time, Pu Jinya was on the rooftop, looking at the phone of the head of the administrative section. So the next goal for today, it is to exchange horses along the son of the manager of the White Gang. Formed a company that had no reason to fight. Looking for him to fight. They are generally victims of school violence. If you talk about this thing alone, it can be said that he is doing good. But he will trade for the weakness of the principal, then hand it over to the perpetrator. Eventually, violence will intensify. That guy is a pure demon. Chubby narrated to himself. But in the next second, he was caught by Pu Jianya. The marks of the cut wrist on the arm are clearly visible. Pu Jianya was a little angry. Sober up, that's right. Jong Do-hoon was once one of the victims. Himself was tortured because of him. And the scum who stands at the top of the food chain. But he made fun of it. At this time, Zheng Daoxuan was standing in front of Ma Minghwan. It's been a long time. but my whole body still couldn't stop shaking. Jong Do-hoon was a little glad that sure enough, this guy doesn't remember me as a little person. But in the next second, Ma Minghwan blocked his eyes with a gun. Dead fat pig. You think I don't remember you, do you? I remember each of your clients clearly. Because you're all precious toys. Go ahead. What the hell is it that you asked me to come here all of a sudden? Aware of the bad general construction industry. Carrying cement fell from the sky. Take out a little thug first. I'm looking around through the smoke. Finally found the place where he had made a mark. He worked on the site for a month, just to get the terrain here. Now everything here is his weapon. And this pillar is the load-bearing master of this layer. With the general construction industry to work hard. There was a rattling sound throughout the building. Soon, Pu Jianye threw a punch towards Ma Minghwan. Ma Minghwan panicked and resisted with the handle of the gun. Ma Minghwan raised his head violently. Who are you? When you see the person coming. Ma Minghwan smiled aggressively. It turned out to be you. Then he kicked out haha. Pu Jianye, you are pitiful enough. Feel aggrieved, don't you? After all, your mother died so miserably. These words successfully angered Pu Jianye. Angry and fought with Ma Minghwan. But he lost his mind. Was quickly knocked down by Ma Minghwan with a punch. Ma Minghwan laughed embarrassed. I'm not the same garbage you've beaten before. I'm the son of the manager of the Yenbai gang. Then the expression was grim. I'm much more experienced than they are. But Pu Jianye is also ready for this battle. Take advantage of familiarity with the terrain. Led Ma Minghwan all the way to the rooftop. Ma Minghwan smiled smugly. This stupid fork was driven to my death. Then deal with him on the rooftop. But he didn't expect Pu Jianye to suddenly slow down, turning his head and ordering Chung Do-hoon. Soon the back road was blocked by a pile of building materials. With a bang, the toy gun in Ma Minghwan's hand also shattered. Look at the scene in front of you. Ma Minghwan was shocked. In fact, Pu Jianye has been laying out since the very beginning. It's just right every time. He hit it all for a whole year for today. In the meantime, except for Een Ziming, no one saw it. Because of the really poisonous vipers. It's often just an opportunistic move. Pumaha brushed his hair. So let's reintroduce it. Noah, a bare-naked boxing fighter. Gu Jianye no longer hides his strength. A long time ago, he never gave up once. Give Mom a chance for revenge. In order to avenge his mother, he did not hesitate to turn to his friend's uncle for help. Learn bare fist fighting. It's a brutal fighting technique. There is no protective equipment in the dueling arena. Split the opponent's hit. A game of hand-to-hand combat. Until one side falls or surrenders. The contest will be terminated. He wanted to learn the technique. Trained his whole body to the point that he was covered with bruises. He no longer hides his strength. With just one punch, the bottom of Ma Minghwan's gun was shattered. It's like a stormy full front. So Ma Minghwan could only dodge desperately. Suddenly, I saw you stretch his legs halfway. Take advantage of the opportunity and hit with one punch. There was a thud of cracking ribs. Ma Minghwan's face instantly became distorted. But in addition to the boxing of bare fist fighting, there is another kind of heavy punch. It is also in the same vein as traditional Chinese martial arts. In ordinary boxing, a move that boxing champion Tyson also often uses. It's called American hook. Pumiyi fell with a blow. The picture has changed to the color of the duplicate film. In Ma Minghwan's terrifying gaze, a punch knocked Ma Minghwan more than 10 meters away. Pu Jianye slowly approached. Fire, where is that guy? And how much do you know about the murder case 1 year ago? Ma Minghwan was angry and reversed. Wasn't he cornered by this guy? Pai Han should have known it for a long time. This guy isn't simple. Why didn't you warn me beforehand? That's not interesting, isn't it? We're still together. Brothers in distress, suddenly. Ma Minghwan seemed to think of something. By the way, this guy seems to have a fatal flaw. Thinking about it, he punched Pu Jianye's parents. Isn't it the left side? It turned out to be on the right. And when Ma Minghwan threw his fist again, Pu Jianya has already dodged closely. Once a person thinks he has the upper hand, will be taken lightly, and he'll take advantage of that, surprisingly at least. But in exchange for Ma Minghwan's calm gaze. "Excuse me, Pu Jianya, I'm also waiting for you to take it lightly." As he spoke, he kicked at Pu Jianya's head. Pu Jianya showed an unwilling expression. "Sorry, Mom," and that's when it is. A voice rang out. Tiger Power is eyeing the tiger. Meanwhile, the building materials on the rooftop of the bet suddenly burst open. Ma Minghwan and Pu Jianya looked at one place at the same time. Ma Minghwan turned out to be done by your gang. The people who touched the student council were like challenging me. President of Lucheng Vocational High School Student Union, and cheer on. Kim Soon-chul, a leather-faced boy in Hee-hung, appears on the stage. Now the uniform has been piled up in the police station. A warehouse full of people. It's all for the gangsters along the white gang. Kim Soon-chul was the first to apply. The all-out war begins at this moment. Ma Minghwan turned his head and mocked. The people who moved the student council were challenging you. You won't forget. You're student council president. It was also arranged for you by the big brother in Korean. When did you become so responsible? Started meddling. Saying that, Ma Minghwan raised his foot again. Meanwhile, Kim Soon-chul lunged at him. Tiger spring. Tiger tiger out of the forest. Bang! Ma Minghwan, in a defensive state, was knocked away. His phone fell to the ground with a thud. Then Kim Soon-chul flashed. The tiger springs retreated from the mountain and drove out. A flurry of fists made Ma Minghwan powerless to parry. Tiger saw that you was a little greedy. This guy seems to be quite powerful. What is practiced? What about boxing? And Ma Minghwan have already broken his ribs. Why still have the strength to fight? The more Pu Jianya thought about it, the more he hated. I can't even get a Ma Minghwan. How can you take the poor? How to get revenge on your mother? This time someone else was helping me. Meanwhile, Gu Jianya suddenly noticed the mobile phone on the side. In incoming calls, Gu Jianya hurriedly wrote down the number. There was also a text message from Brother Minghwan. What happened? Big Brother Ishimaru went to look for you. Gu Jianya's face was frightened. The name Sengo Kamaru. I remember that Zheng Daoshuan once told him. At this time, Ma Minghwan flew out again on the other side, looking at Kim Soon-chul's terrifying expression. Ma Minghwan could only persuade Kim Soon-chul to join Yen Baibang, trying to fight for a glimmer of life. Kim Soon-chul had a stern expression. No, I don't need that. I'm going to college. Ma Minghwan hurriedly returned to school and went to college. It's hilarious. You won't let that Siming be stupid, right? And at this very moment, a horse-turned male suddenly appears. 5 punches are not so easy to deal with, so it's good to take me out more. Don't keep me in the martial arts hall all the time. Meanwhile, Gu Jianya raised his fist and prepared to sneak attack. But seeing that the horse turned into a man, his face remained unchanged. One is bent on avenging his mother. One is that I want to change my mind, and I'm going to address these two. A move that the master prohibits. The first fuse makes a moment. Kim Soon-chul and Pu Jianya. They were all trampled under the feet of Ma Chongnan. Well, the evil party is here, and the fools are here. The male protagonist's academic performance has finally improved. Third from the bottom of the school. Success became the bottom 21. Number 1 Kim Se-hyun with Choi Hee-won, who is ranked 103rd. Although superficially comforting, but I also felt a little outrageous in my heart. Even Lee Ji-yu took the exam 112. Lee Jun's average score reached 98. Sure enough, the joys and sorrows of human beings are not the same. The male protagonist left the study in frustration. The male protagonist of the group looked aggrieved. When I think of how confident I looked before the midterm exams, he was ashamed and indignant. On the other side, Mr. Han Jing was very happy, because Kim Se-hyun successfully took the first place in the school. Sun Hon Kyun, the teacher, came to the office of the Minister of Education. Minister of Studies, agreed to promote the disposition of the skin Korean. But the Minister of Education has one more thing to say. Actually, he knows it. Pai Han with his men. It's always been a class at school. Trying to eradicate it will inevitably cause a bloody storm. But if you want to completely let Pai Han drop out of school, in addition to him, he needs to get the principal, the vice-chancellor, or other minister agrees. Teacher Han Jin's face changed slightly. Obviously, the school rules have been confirmed. Could it be that I missed it? The provost was silent for a moment. If there is no suitable candidate, if the student council member agrees, it's okay. Teacher Han Jin's eyes lit up, which was great. Isn't that the student council president, Shin Sun-cheol? Teacher Han Jin quickened his pace and ran towards the student council. The Korean language must be withdrawn as soon as possible. But soon, the scene in front of him made him fall into despair again. Member of the student council. They all lay on the ground. These 10 batches of Korean appeared. Teacher, do you want to find the student council president? Would you like to get to know the new one? Student council president. And at this time, the new president Singo Shimaru. I correspond to the male owner. To Gold. The members of the student council led by Shuinja were worried. That guy could do it for a moment. Solve the existence of him and Pu Jianye. He practiced Wing Chun, the basic martial art of Jeet Kune Do. It is a fighting machine specially cultivated by the Yenbai gang. Is Ian Ziming really okay?